Well, we're going to talk about handwriting this afternoon, but why on earth are we going to talk about handwriting if in our country reading is such an issue? So if reading is an issue, what's the story? Well, I hope I'm going to convince you this afternoon that it is possible, it is really possible to look at reading in terms of handwriting. So let's talk a little bit about reading first. And yes, it is about knowledge of language, of the text, vocabulary, knowledge of the code, phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, and many other skills, frame of reference, previous experiences, many other things. But I think our very own Dr. Marion Joseph says it brilliantly when she says reading is a meaning-making process. Reading is a meaning-making process. Isn't that a phenomenal definition? I really think she's captured the essence. And the problem with reading for meaning is in our country is because the children can't read. And I am going to do my utmost this afternoon to share with you our approach at the Mind Moves Institute. This is you have to crack the code before you can read the code. Because language, when it's written, remember there's oral language. That means I listen, I speak. And then there's written language. I write and I read. Can you hear? It's writing. You need to write before somebody can read. Writing is as though you're putting sound onto paper. Sound, thoughts, well, thoughts and feelings in the form of sounds. But they don't have sound per se, but the letters represent sound. And if you don't understand that those squiggles on paper actually carries sound and meaning, reading is really very complicated. Well, talking about reading, I read a lot of scientific papers, but every now and again, it just gets too much. So I was reading a wonderful crime novel the other day, and I love reading Italian, not in Italian, but crime novels that's all about crime in, well, the detectives in Italy. And it was the most bizarre story that I want to share with you, because there was this, that they found these bones of a person, and obviously they're dead and has been dead for quite a while. But the most bizarre thing, there was a stone in the mouth. And they were thinking, how on earth did this person die with a stone in their mouth? And then the wise old detective says, oh, you obviously don't understand the message. You are not reading the text. There's a code here. And unless you know the code, you actually can't solve this crime. Because in Italy, when a person rats or a person splits on other people or inform on other people, they are killed at that stage. And there's a stone that is put in their mouths to indicate that this is the corpse of a ratta, not a rapper, a ratta. Isn't that fascinating? So unless you could crack the code, they couldn't crack the crime. And by the way, it's really true. So at the Mind Moves Institute, we are adamant. We are adamant, and we would love anybody to show us that our approach to teach writing before reading, I would love anybody to show us that we are wrong. And I'm saying that with all honesty and all seriousness in my heart, because if we are wrong, we need to rectify our way. But let me tell you why we say that. Why do we say writing before reading? Well, if you say writing, we just need to differentiate between how you write and what you write, and obviously read, because once you've written, you can read it. So we're going to focus this afternoon predominantly on how you write, because our experience at the Mind Moves Institute has been for the past 13 years, has been that children are really battling to write. And yes, with the transition to online learning and the use of tablets and devices like that, there's a serious question. Should we still teach children to write? If you understand brain development, and you understand the immensely complex feast it is when a child can write, I wouldn't discourage it. I would still encourage children to learn to write. And I would definitely encourage the teachers and the Department of Education to maybe question the sensibility of teaching print and cursive. Oh, there's a body of research that indicates that cursive writing promotes the flow of thought, and it very often improves what you are writing. In other words, the story, not the physical act of writing, but the writing content. So let's talk about
people's names already on it. So it's got how Fakir, Ridgeway, Muslim School.
Yeah. Leslie, could you please mute? Thank you. Okay. So for that reason, we're going to look at posture, we're going to look at muscle tone, we're going to look at handedness and pencil grip, and what can you do about all of that? So I'm going to use and learn from learners, because I don't know if you agree, but my best learning has always been directly from a learner rather than from a textbook. And if we watch this boy, there's something we can't see. We can't see if this chair wasn't too big or too low, and that's why he's sitting in such an awkward position. Okay, so we need to look at the size of a chair, because obviously the kind of chair that the child sits on determines whether they can reach the table or are they too tall, what is going on in terms of the chair. So the size of the chair, incredibly important. Research has shown that when one slouches, so the forward head posture, and on average, an adult head weighs 5 kilograms, while a child's head weighs a little bit less, but not too much, okay? So that's why a baby is born with such a huge head, because a lot of head is needed for that massively intelligent brain to develop. So there's not a massive difference in the size of the head. So when a person has an upright posture, the average head weighs 5 kilograms. When they start slouching, you need to go and talk to the science teachers to explain how can a head all of a sudden weighs 8 or 10 kilos. Now it hasn't changed. It isn't heavier because it's grown or anything like that, but the effect on the body is as though it is now 10 kilograms. And if you slouch even more, it is as though it weighs 15 kilograms. A colleague of mine has had a presentation on math a couple of years ago at a conference in Nelspruit. Lorraine explained beautifully why she asked a very strong person to hold a 2.5 kilo bag of sugar up. And then she continued to talk. And in time, you could see how that person was dropping their arms because obviously their arms got tired. And her point was, if children have low muscle tone and they find it very difficult to sit up, it also means that it becomes more difficult for them to concentrate. Because if the average high school math paper, grade 11, grade 12, is 3 hours long, unless a learner has the fundamental muscle tone needed to keep that body still and straight, they would definitely underperform. You see, muscle tone is an opposing force to gravity. So gravity pulls down. Gravity wants you to lie down and rest. That's why we always lie down when we're tired. That's what we do when it's a wonderful holiday and we can lie down. Teachers can lie down in midday and enjoy a bit of a rest. So gravity pulls down. Muscle tone is opposing force to gravity. So the body needs to move enough preschool to enable a preschool child to sit still and straight. And I'll explain the straight just now. They need to be able to sit still and straight for 11 minutes when they enter grade 1. Only 11 minutes, and then they can move again. And I don't mean frozen in a still and straight position, but they can sit, they can control their physical body in an upright position for 11 minutes. Why 11 minutes? Well, it's a very interesting thing. In preschool, there's a correlation between age and the number of minutes a child should be able to sit still and straight. 1 year, 1 minute. 2 years, 2 minutes. 3 years, 3 minutes. 4 years, 4 minutes. 5 years, 5 minutes. But the moment we move to the second hand, if you were counting your fingers like I've just been doing now, and you transition to the second hand, and you raise that thumb to indicate 6, your 6th birthday in grade R, the moment you move to the second hand, you add 5 minutes. So if you're 7 years old, it's 7 plus 5, 12 minutes. If you're 8 years old, 8 plus 5, 13 minutes, to a maximum of 17 minutes in school. Before there's a transition, before there's a change to enable the concentration to just release for a moment, and then it can start again. So in preschool, those gross motor development programs are vitally important. Many schools, primary schools, are putting a lot of pressure on the preschools to be mini grade 1s, to stop playing so much outside and to do more desk-based work, fine motor work in preparation for grade 1. Primary schools, the moment we do that, you must know that you've just put that child at a disadvantage. Because if they don't develop their gross motor muscles, which includes balance, posture, and a lot of other skills that go with it, but if they don't develop that in preschool, when will they? They're definitely not going to do that in grade 1. So preschool should do what preschool should do, and that is send school-ready children to grade 1, and that includes physical readiness, where a body is strong and straight, and that child has the impulse control, which is an emotional skill, but impulse control, that they can hold that body even if they want to move and they don't particularly enjoy the task. Especially if they don't really enjoy the task. That's called impulse control, and the single quality that all successful people in the world share. Did you know that? The single quality every successful person on this earth, that's what the research tells us, what they all have in common is not money, it's not status, it's not qualifications, it's not a lot of stuff. What it is the ability to wait, impulse control, which we need to foster preschool. So they've already acquired that and can maintain impulse control for at least 11 minutes. And I know we can actually stop the PowerPoint and just talk about those 11 minutes and what you actually see in the classroom, which I assume, or I've been told, is not quite a group of children who can sit still and straight for 11 minutes. You see, there's something else. There's a direct correlation, and this is a challenge. This is to challenge your visual perception. Can you see the two images, the one superimposed over the other? There's a head, neck, torso, and then there are 2 feet superimposed on the torso. It's to indicate that there's a direct correlation between the position of the feet and the position of the spine. So that's why it's very important that children don't sit on chairs that are too high, so their feet are dangling, because the feet need to be solidly down on the ground. Because if the feet aren't solidly down on the ground, it's very difficult for the vestibular system. The vestibular system, says the neurologist Oleg Efimov, it's a Russian neurologist, he says the vestibular system is the place in the body where gravity meets cognition. Woo, it's big stuff. It's the place, vestibular system, in your ears and in your neck. The vestibular system is the place in the body where gravity, that groundedness of gravity, meets cognition. So if a child's feet aren't planted firmly on the ground, That means it makes it harder for the vestibular system to navigate. It makes it more difficult for the vestibular system that works like the body's GPS. It makes it difficult to find current location. And if the brain can't find, the vestibular system can't find current location, it's very difficult for a child to concentrate. So when we see children sit in a W leg position, they are compensating very often, can be habit, but very often they are compensating for low muscle tone and an underdeveloped vestibular system. Because what we're seeing on screen now is very similar to when a child learns to ride a bike, and they have these two fairy wheels. We call fairy wheels. Love to know the story behind those fairy wheels. That stabilizes the base. So you're broadening the base to give the child a bit more stability, and until they've learned to pedal properly and steer properly and develop the necessary muscle tone and muscle memory to enable them to ride a bike without fairy wheels. So when a child sits in a W leg position, it may be, watch posture, maybe because there's lower muscle tone, but it may also be an indication of immature vestibular system. So is the same story applies to children who hook their feet around the legs of the chair. Remember, we're going to talk about writing. It's going to take us a while. Actually, we started off with reading. You see, all of these things need to be in place way before the child is neurophysiologically ready to learn to read. And then the fundamentals, acquire the fundamentals of reading, and then in time to read with comprehension and meaning and understanding. So the moment a child hooks their feet, what are they doing? They find it very difficult to sit upright, so they need support. They need fairy wheels, and they add fairy wheels by hooking their feet around the legs of the chair. You see a lot of other sitting positions in class. Very often children pull their legs up. Well, immediately you know from the session, if the feet aren't grounded, if the feet aren't on the ground, it's more difficult for the vestibular system to link with gravity, to find that sense of current location, so the child can orientate themselves in space, which is vitally important. Because if a child can't find or orientate themselves in space, how would they be able to know? They don't know where they are. How would they know in which direction a D or a B faces, or any of the other letters? So you see, it all starts with current location. For current location, we need the feet firmly on the ground. We need an upright body posture. And that's true for left and right-handed children who are left and right-handed. And obviously, you can slant the paper just to make it a little bit easier for them to see while they're writing. So let's quickly learn from this young man. I wish I knew his name. What keen eyes. But again, watch the posture. But I want you to watch something else. Can you see the mouth? Can you see how those lips are working? Yeah, can you see that? There's a direct correlation between the mouth and the hands. I don't know if you've had a baby recently or anybody else that you've known that was breastfeeding. You do see it with bottle feeding, you see it more with breastfeeding. So while a baby is feeding, the hand is automatically, it's moving. The hands move because there's the mouth and the hands, one mouth and the two hands on the same neurological loop in the brain. So with a baby, when the mouth is feeding, the hands are moving, and sometimes even the toes as well. It's to get that link ready. And that link is still very active in this young boy. That link should stop, and the mouth should start working independently from hand movements around about the age of 3. Okay, so it's normal for a very young child to move their mouth while they're trying to do something, catch a ball. It's normal for a child, a young child, a child that's never cut with scissors before, to use the mouth. We say we recruit the muscles of the mouth because it's one mouth, two hands. The mouth works first. It has a longer history in neurodevelopment, and that then supports the hand. Just looking at the hand, we can't see the hand from the other side, but you can immediately see there's a bit of a strange, awkward grip. Okay, so when the mouth and the hands are still on the same neurological loop and they don't work independently, chances are excellent that a child battles with pencil grip. If you look at this boy, the angle is a little bit better for us to see. We've spoken about the posture. We're going to learn a lot from this young man. But just for now, just look at his hand. Do you see the thumb and the middle finger are controlling the pen, and the index finger is resting at the top, and it's working very hard. It actually looks like it's double jointed. Okay, so why does he hold the pen between his thumb and his index finger and not between his thumb? And why does he hold his pen between his thumb and the middle finger and not the thumb and the index finger, as is the most effective pencil grip? It very often comes from the way children are learned or taught to cut. Many teachers in preschool, many therapists encourage a cut position where the thumb is in the one circle, the middle finger in the other, and the index finger is supporting the blade to steer the blade. The ideal cutting position is thumb and index finger. Why? Because if you develop the thumb and the middle finger together, your chances are excellent to foster an incorrect pencil grip. And just to, why? Natalie, can you please mute? Thank you. So why do I say that's not the ideal or the optimal, or as they say in neuroscience, the energy efficient way of using the hand? Where you are at the moment, just put your thumb and your index finger of your writing hand together and just move them up and down, straighten them and then move them a little bit closer to the web. Just move your thumb and your index finger, create a circuit, close, and then move and feel the ease of movement or the lack of movement. Now use your thumb and the middle finger. Do the same without moving the index finger. And you'll feel it's more rigid, isn't it? Yes, because neuroscience teaches us what body parts are closer together, actually fire together, and therefore they wire together. So neurons or nerves that fire together, wire together, but the same can be said for body parts. So if one through preschool years and even in primary school teaches child to use their thumb and their index finger under the blade and their middle finger, so the thumb and the middle finger to cut, chances are excellent that those neurons will fire together and wire together and result in an awkward pencil grip. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just not energy saving. It's not energy efficient. So more energy then goes to the hand, which sometimes affects task completion because it affects tempo of work. But it also affects the way a child writes a test or an exam paper. It seriously impacts on their use of time because it's more labor intensive, but there's something more. It takes more brain concentration to use an inefficient pencil grip. While if a child is taught right from the start to use the thumb and index finger when they cut and develop those fingers so well that it can guide the blade without the support to the blade, the chances are excellent that the thumb and index finger will then join forces, fire together, wire together, and develop a supportive and energy-saving grip. So we've said that posture is incredibly important, but posture is only possible if a child has sufficient muscle tone. So the moment the child has sufficient muscle tone, they can keep their body upright, and that automatically frees the arms and the hands to develop the hands better and the fine motor muscles of the hands. And just as a reminder, because I'm sure you know this, but the thumb and the index finger, whether you're left-handed or right-handed, the thumb and index fingers are the two skilled fingers, and the middle finger, ring finger, and the little finger are the supporting fingers. So if we look at this young man and we said, okay, so he can improve his grip, he can definitely, he has to improve his posture before, and simultaneously he can develop his grip. But there's something else that I want you to see in this picture. Yes, it may be to the size of the chair in relationship to the height of the table, okay? But just so you can be aware of something else, there's a very interesting thing that the moment the child drops their head, they put their eyes automatically, if they're staring forward, the eyes would move in an upwards position. Now it's interesting because the moment you move, as you sit right now, and you turn your eyes towards the ceiling, you would be activating the occipital lobe, or the seeing part of the brain. The moment you see that a learner tends to slouch a lot, yes, it may be muscle tone, it may be an underdeveloped vestibular system, but it may also be that the child actually battles to see. And for that reason, they drop the chin to push the eyes in the optimal visual position to make it easier for them to see. And sometimes they simply lean forward so they're closer to print matter so they can read it with greater ease. You see, all of these things need to be taken into consideration before we get to handwriting, and obviously long before we get to reading. The work of Walter Penfield in the 1950s, he found that wherever you turn your eyes, when eyes look up, as I just said, you activate, like the girl on screen, you activate the occipital lobe. When you're in class tomorrow and the learners are with you, ask them to look up and notice those learners who can't turn their eyes up. When they look up, it's a head movement. It's not an eye movement. That's marvelous, because it tells you that that child has potential. The child is just developmentally slightly behind on a neurophysiological level, which means they use their head as an eye movement instead of eyes as eye movement. And for that reason, occupational therapists through the years, and many other therapists, remedial teachers, and also at the Mindfulness Institute, we teach teachers and children and parents how to develop their eye movements by tracing an infinity sign when you hold your thumb right in front of your eyes. And if you're reading from left to right, like most Western languages, you go up, huge circle around the left eye, up in the middle, huge circle around the right eye. You do that 3 times, swap hands, you do it another 3 times, and then you rub your hands and you close your eyes, because that's taking your eyes to the gym. So eye movements are incredibly important before you can really develop the different writing strokes. You must remember, the hands need to become fit to be able to draw vertical lines, horizontal lines, circles, and all the other diagonal lines, and all of these other lines that are necessary, because it's not about the line. It's like Lance Armstrong in his book, it's not about the bike, it's not about the line. It's about what's happening in the brain, what's happening in the hands, what's happening in the eyes that enable a child to write and later read with greater ease. The Mindfulness Institute, we continue to say it's writing before reading, because it is breaking when you encode sound. How do you do that? If you become when you work with phonemic awareness, and the child says, what's the first sound you hear When I say and, oh, it's the a. Okay. Do you know what an a sound looks like in code? Because it's a code. You encode it when you write it down. Now they're cracking a code. So when they get to reading, they can start joining those little codes that they've learned already, and it becomes easier to decode and all the other visual reading skills, pre-reading skills that are so important that's important before we get to reading for meaning and comprehension. Teachers, that's why in preschool, not only is it so incredibly important that children learn to speak the language of teaching and learning in grade 1, but it's also why it's so important they develop gross motor skills, to develop muscle tone, to maintain their posture. Without muscle tone, it's very difficult. It's very not impossible, but very difficult to develop impulse control. And impulse control is necessary before attention and concentration can develop optimally. So muscle tone, language development, obviously, muscle tone to develop posture and impulse control. And now that the body is strong and straight, those hands need 3 years or longer of creative activities. And it's not just about the tearing, the cutting, the gluing, the drawing, the painting, the Play-Doh play. Yes, those activities definitely develop the muscles in the hands, because I don't know if you know, but there are no muscles in the fingers. There are only tendons in the fingers. So you need to develop the palms of the hands extremely well, and that's why children need to climb and do monkey bars and do all kinds of marvelous activities, wheelbarrow walks, all kinds of activities to open the hands widely so it can develop the muscle tone in the hands. But hands need to open and they need to close, and the creative activities preschool are there to develop the muscles in the hands and the tendons in the fingers. But did you know that creative activities in preschools are actually emergent writing and reading? Because if the preschool teacher is not using worksheet after worksheet after worksheet, but is wise enough to understand the value of blank paper and how that challenges the child to think, to plan, and to convert their thoughts and their feelings and their ideas into symbols on paper, because that's what making a picture is. It's age-appropriate preschool writing, because when a child creates their own picture, and they've created that own picture from their own experience, and then they take that picture and they take it to teacher or to mom or to dad or to granny or to caregiver to read. Can you hear? They wrote on paper, they used their multisensory experiences to put down on paper in symbol form, picture symbols, and then they read, but it's their symbols. Okay, they need to understand for 3 years in preschool, they need blank pages every single week. I want to say every single day of every single day of the week. They need blank paper to create some kind of a picture, write a picture on paper using art materials that they can read later. That transition from thought and sound and feelings to symbols, it takes quite a while. It takes 3 or more years. Teachers, can you understand when a child has had a very free preschool years? With that, I mean, they didn't get the opportunity to do creative activities many different ways. Maybe they didn't even draw with sticks and sand or mud. So they cannot just leap into writing and reading in grade 1. Well, I am assuming those children do know, can understand and speak the language of instruction in classroom. So I'm taking that as a given. But unless they've had for years experienced how to convert their experiences, their thoughts, their feelings into picture symbols on paper, and then to be able to pick their symbols, their code, because it's their code, to pick it up and read it to somebody else. If they haven't done that, my word, is it difficult for them to transition to the letters of the alphabet, punctuation, obviously numbers as well. So it's incredibly important that there's enough time spent on blank page, preschool, blank pages, preschool, to enable children to transition from oral language to written language. And the in-between step is converting their experiences into picture symbols. So let's recap. And we start from top left. So the head must be up to stabilize the eyes, to focus on the teacher on the board, and be able, without moving the body too much, to focus on the desk. Go down the left-hand side. The spine needs to be erected. It's called an S curve, resting against the chair with the elbows at a 90-degree angles, the hips at a 90-degree angles. Please go to the right. The knees at 90-degree angles, and the feet, the ankles at 90-degree angles, resting on the floor. And the elbow, we said, must be at 90-degree angles, and the wrist needs to be straight. There are so many skills, physical skills. This is called physical intelligence. When a child is able to maintain that posture, because you know what happens to their minds. They're freed. Little concentration goes to maintaining their physical body. And the majority of their brain concentration goes towards thinking and feeling good about their feelings, their thoughts. Obviously, there is no substitute for a caring parent, caregiver, teacher that supports a child who's already acquired the appropriate posture. But if you've noticed, or you've thought of very specific learners in your classroom, and you thought, oh my, had they way off the mark, then there's a couple of things that you can do. And after the presentation tomorrow, we'll have it on the Mindfulness Institute Facebook page with links, YouTube links to these movements. So if you're interested, you can look at the YouTube links to see exactly how to do these movements. But it's very simple. You raise left arm, left leg, drop, raise right arm, right leg. You practice that a couple of times to develop laterality. And once you've developed laterality, step 2 is on the right-hand side, you cross over. So then you use the right hand touching left knee and left hand touching right knee. And if you really want to challenge the child, but this is obviously, if they can stand still and straight while they do this, they move their eyes in a figure of 8 position as well. The hand moves massage is a marvelous way, remember, the previous mind moves, the homolateral and bilateral march, those 2 mind moves support the development of gross motor movement, the vestibular system, and sense of gravity and current location. Okay, so it develops the vestibular system. Remember, as we said, the vestibular system is the place in the body where gravity, current location, meets cognition. Now, once you've got your GPS has established current location, you can follow the map and get to where you want to go. So I assume with that move, we've developed the child on a gross motor level. Now we need to develop the hand, and you can do it for yourself. It's always nicer if somebody else massages your hand. And again, we'll put it on Facebook, so you can download a YouTube, or you can just watch the YouTube if you want to, but it's very simple. You want to, let's just quickly do that. Just open your hands as wide as you possibly can and wriggle your fingers, and then close your hands, fist them as tightly as you can, and then open them again, and then fist again, and then we massage one hand. Just compare the feeling in your 2 hands. Are they equally tight? Are they equally loose? Are they comfortable? Are there painful spots? And then use the one hand, the thumb and index finger. Why? Because those are our skillful fingers. And massage between the thumb and the index finger of the other hand. So start as high up on the palm of the hand as you can, and then move your thumb and index finger. It's like you're pinching the space, that web space between thumb and index finger. Then move your hand and massage the space between your index finger and the middle finger. Once you've done that, move your hand again and massage the space between the ring finger and the middle finger. Then you go back and you massage the space between the little finger and the ring finger. And you do that 3 times. So let's do that again. So the web space between thumb and index finger, massage with me. Between index finger and middle finger, using your other hand, we massage the space between middle finger and ring finger. And then space between ring finger and little finger. And we do that 3 times. And if you don't mind, just continue doing that while I continue to talk, so we can get to the last part of the presentation before we run out of time. You also move down once you've massaged in between each of these fingers from the palm of the hand. Remember, that's the only part where there are muscles in your hands. Then you push on each finger from the palm towards the nail of each finger. It's illustrated here as though you're doing somebody else's hands, which my children always loved, but you can do it for yourself as well. And please continue to massage the fingers of the hand that the palm of the hand that you've just massaged. And can I ask you to just open your hands, close your hands, and then wiggle your fingers and feel if your 2 hands feel the same? Well, if you did the activity with me, the chances are excellent that those 2 hands won't feel exactly the same at this stage. Why? Because the moment you start stimulating a hand, there's an immediate shift on a neurophysiological level. So it's wonderful to do this kind of activity that learners can do themselves in the classroom while you are giving them instructions. Initially, it takes some time to teach them the move, but soon they know exactly how to do it, and you will be amazed at the effect it has on the ease with which they write. There's another one, which is called the mind moves finger fight. So you can do this with both hands simultaneously. Please work with me. So use the thumb and index finger of both hands simultaneously and apply pressure and hold it for a count of 8. And then let go. And then thumb and middle finger, apply pressure. No pain, no gain. And hold it for a count of 8. Let go. Thumb and ring finger, apply pressure. You feel it's a little bit more tricky. Apply pressure, hold it for a count of 8. Let go. Thumb and little finger, apply pressure, hold for a count of 8. Let go. And repeat that mind move 3 times. Be amazed at how more relaxed the hands feel. You must remember, the brain pays attention where attention is needed the most. The better the body is developed, the better the hands are developed. The less attention the brain has to spend on the physical act of writing. And the greater part of attention can then go towards what they're writing. And obviously, there's spelling and things like that. So, spoken about posture, spoken about muscle tone. Said muscle tone is important for impulse control. Said it's incredibly important that children can sit still and straight, because that frees the arms with feet on the floor, current location, with hips at a 90-degree angle, knees and ankles and elbows, to free the hands to really, for the one hand to hold the book and for the other one to start writing. We did these fine motor movements, these mind moves, to just give them, the child's muscle tone, a little bit of an extra boost. And we focused specifically on the development of the fingers to develop the fine motor muscles in the hands and the tendons in the fingers to enable the hands to make all the different strokes necessary for clear handwriting. And now we come to the final part of this presentation, which could have been the entire presentation. So now the body is still in straight. At the Mindmoves Institute, we've been experimenting for quite a while, and we've experimented with this both in South Africa and with our colleagues in Russia, because they use a tremendous amount of equipment. They've got tremendous state support in terms of equipment and computer programs to measure change. In South Africa, we work in a different way, so it was wonderful to collaborate with them. And the evidence is very clear. The moment a child's body is still in straight and their feet are planted firmly on the ground, and they can keep that body fully upright, and you then draw a picture of a child after you've segmented a page, an A4 page, you draw horizontal lines, you divide the page into 3 equal bits, and then you draw a head. So the line goes through where the neck would start. The next line goes through where the legs would start. So it gives you that page is divided into 3 equal parts, and your body is projected on that. Yeah, remember, now we're going to teach the child a new code. Remember when they drew pictures? They were drawing symbols, okay? That was their code. That's why they could encode and decode. But now we want to teach them the letters of the alphabet. It's not their code, it's somebody else's code. But the moment you present the code to the child in terms of their body, it becomes so much easier. So at the Mindmoves Institute, we teach children that you are very, very important. All the letters of the alphabet start on you. And sometimes they'll start on your head, but sometimes they'll start on the body part. But if we want to do a letter of a sound, that first sound in the word and, can you hear how we do it? We don't teach them that's an a, because it's not always an a, it's an a in and. But what does that letter sound like when we say swan? It's not an a. If we say baby, it's not an a. When we say zebra, it's not an a, is it? And so we can go on. We can say lots of other words. So at the Mindmoves Institute, we start with the whole word. And we say, what's that first sound that you hear? Oh, it's the a in and. Now let me show you how we can change that sound into a code, into a letter on paper. It starts on you. Why? Because you're the most important person in the whole wide world in your own eyes. And therefore, every letter starts on you. So the a in and starts on your chest, more or less where your heart beats. And then you go up and to the left and round, all the way up to where your neck starts, or your head starts, and then down, and you stop where your legs start. And the moment we do that, teachers, the success rate with children who battle to understand the letters of the alphabet, it just makes sense to them. They feel that letters aren't those abstract things, those other people's symbols that they can't crack. They learn that letters are actually their friends. They come closer to them because this image is of the child facing the paper. Can you see there are no eyes, no nose, no mouth? Why? Because the child is not facing you. The image is facing away from you in the same direction that the child is facing the paper. So left would be left, right would be right. You understand? And so we've divided, and we teach children. It's different from the way many teachers, the sequence in which they teach the letters of the alphabet. But very often that sequence is determined by reading. And because we do this from a logical neuroscience perspective, we teach them the rules. And we teach them which letters start on you and to the left. So if you look, it would be the in ox, it will be the k in cat, this in snake, the d in dog, the a in ant, the g in ground and gravity, the q in queen, the j in jacket, and the f in maybe fox, or it can be fire or any other letter. It depends on the theme that we're discussing, because when they understand that the f in fire looks like this every single time, it's not like a picture. You see, if a child is preschool, whether they draw, and you say draw a picture of yourself, whether they are sitting down, whether they are walking, whether they're walking towards you on paper, away from you, facing to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter. It's right. It's correct, because it's a picture of you. They need to learn that the letters of the alphabet, this code is different. It must always start on the same part of your body, and it must always face in the same direction. Because if we manage to teach them the code, the writing code, how to encode sound right from the start, we never battle with children who write the H and the E and the L and the P in the word help the same size. And you know they do. No, it's much harder to remediate, to unlearn something once it's learned. So we rather teach them the code right from the beginning, and then we teach them the two letters that are not moving to the left or to the right. The L in light, or the first sound in what else? Lamb. What's that first sound? It's the L. It starts on your head, and then it goes straight down, and it ends where your legs start. And the in ink, it starts where your neck starts just below your head. It stops where your leg stops, and then, whoops, that little that dot at the top. And what about the rest of the letters? All the letters that are shaped to the right of me are taught last. And as you look at this sequence, there's quite a couple of letters in between the D and the B. And the way we teach children preschool, we actually teach them there's stories. We teach preschool. We teach the children that there's a story around these letters, and they're actually set up to hear the beginning sound of the same letter quite a few times in that theme. And then we say, for instance, the D in dam. Oh, there's a story about dam, and that dams have pipes that flow in and out of the dam. So there's a long story about dam. And then we teach them the D in dam starts on your body, go to the left, down, up the middle, all the way to the top, down, and stop where your leg starts. That's the D in dam. And we teach them this just after that, because we talk about snakes that can slither and swim. And where can they swim? Yes, they can also swim in a dam. And then we teach them to write this in snake inside the D of dam. And you know what we've just done? They never forget that the D in dam starts with a round part to the left. So when they finally get to the B in boss, because the B in boss is the first sound that we hear when we talk, we first have a conversation, because reading and writing are the written version of oral language that always starts with conversation and interaction. So we talk about boss. What does boss mean? What does your mom say about a boss? What does your dad say about a boss? Do they have a boss? Or are they the boss? You know, that kind of, and how would a boss, what's the job of a boss? What's their function? Oh, they need to watch that everybody is doing their work. Oh, okay. So how would they walk? Would they slouch? No, they would be upright. Why? Because they're boss. They're going to watch that they need to be able to see that everybody is doing their work. For that reason, where do we start with a B and boss? On the head. Yes, because you're upright. And then it goes all the way down to where your legs start. And then it goes to the right And then it turns on the line and it stops in the middle. So each letter of the alphabet is taught in the same way. So this is the Facebook address for our preschool and e-learning program. So it's School Readiness at Mind Moves, where our primary school and high school support Facebook is Mind Moves at Institute. Now I'm going to stop sharing because I would love to know in the last 3 minutes if there are any questions or comments, so we can share the questions and comments. Anybody?
Melody, there is one comment. I think the lady's name is Shanice, and she thought the presentation was phenomenal. Wow, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's see if there are any other folk who'd like to ask questions.
Please put your hand up and then unmute yourself so we can have a conversation. You know, we can be regular people. If there's a question or a comment. No? Then, Dr. Joseph, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a passion this afternoon. I sincerely hope it was worth the investment of an hour of your time. Thank you very much.
Oh, there's a question from Charlotte.
Okay, Charlotte, yay. Charlotte, please unmute.
Melody, we've got a thing at the school at the moment where we've got, I don't think it's directly related to your presentation, but we're having an argument, not an argument per se, but
a debate.
A debate. Our seniors have to write in cursive because they are taught cursive in grade 3, and now they go up to grade 4, and some teachers give them a choice to write in print or in cursive. And by the time they come to grade 7 now, we were told that the children have to write in cursive, but they've unlearned how to write in cursive. Yes. How do we go about this debate now?
So, Charlotte, I am so glad that I'm not going to be the referee because I do not know the CAPS document well enough for intermediate phase to be able to advise you. So I would solve that argument by studying the CAPS document and see what is advised.
Melody?
Marion.
Thanks.
The foundation phase, when it refers to handwriting, they're told they can teach cursive or joined script. So it unfortunately does not only specify cursive. It can also be joined script if the school makes that choice.
Marion, does the CAPS document, are you aware that it makes provision when can children use print rather than cursive?
I'm reasonably sure that it does, because you know the handwriting is included in the CAPS curriculum. But exactly when, I'm afraid that I can't tell you, but I do know it specifies cursive or joined script. Melissa wants to ask you a question.
Melissa, will you please unmute? Melissa?
She's unmuted, but we can't seem to hear her. Melissa, do you want to perhaps try writing your question in the chat box, or can you solve the problem with the sound? There are a couple of other questions in the chat box, Melody.
Okay, Marion, would you mind reading them?
Yeah, there's one from Anissa. She wants to know, how do you help an untidy learner in the foundation phase to write neatly?
Well, that's exactly what I attempted to do this afternoon. So if you follow the recommendations or the guidelines that was offered this afternoon, it definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, will make a huge improvement. It's not a quick fix, but it's a sure fix.
Melissa, can you speak? Can we hear you? Yeah, she's still unmuted, but I can't hear her.
Melissa, just check the volume on Melissa, just check the volume on your laptop, your device. Sometimes when the volume is muted, even though you unmute yourself, you can't be heard. Marion, any other questions?
I'm having a look. There's just a number of thank yous. Yes, there will be a recording. Melody, remind them of where they can access the recording.
So the recording will be on the Mind Moves Institute Facebook. Please don't ask me more questions about Facebook. I have no clue. But I do know that the primary and high school support Facebook of the Mind Moves Institute is called Institute at Mind Moves. And then our preschool support Facebook is School Readiness at Mind Moves. So yesterday's presentation is loaded on School Readiness already, and we'll load this one on Mind Moves Facebook tomorrow morning, plus links to the YouTube.
Okay, Melissa's typed her question. She says she wanted to ask, would you be able to look at developing a readiness assessment for grade 1?
I did. Melissa, readiness in what? Physically, emotionally, socially, and cognitively. I did. It's on Mind Moves, e-learning at Mind Moves on the web, and it's online learning. It's rather helpful. It's an instrument. It's not a group instrument. It's an individual instrument, but it's really helpful if you want to identify what is actually, where do I start intervening with a specific learner. We've also developed a brand new e-learning intervention program called Neurodynamics. But if you go to e-learning at Mind Moves online, you will find that. It opens up on the preschool e-learning programs and the Neurodynamics program. Fascinating program. I think it was developed to dovetail with the CS process, and it comes complete with kit and an intervention plan. So there's an assessment kit, you assess the learner, you enter the data, and then it suggests an intervention program. And once the child has mastered that, you enter the data and it suggests the next intervention program till the child is thriving.
Okay, there's a question from Felicia. She wants to know if they can buy the Reading Readiness books online, and can we get it on the website?
Yes, it's all available. It's available on the e-learning at Mind Moves website.
Okay, just to repeat that, e-learning at Mind Moves. I hate to tell you this, Melody, but teachers aren't the best listeners in the world.
Okay, as long as they get the Mind Moves Institute Facebook, then everything else we'll put on Facebook and links to everything else tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's one thing to remember. Mind Moves Institute Facebook.
And then there was a question about a register, and the participant list serves as the attendance register. There's nothing for you to sign. One more chance to ask a question if you want to before we let Dr. Melody go off and enjoy her evening. No. Okay, lots of thank yous, Melody, and that seems to be it. So heartfelt thanks and a wish to you to have a very pleasant evening. You've earned it. You've fed our minds and given us a great deal of thought-provoking information. And to everyone who joined this afternoon, thank you. I wish you a lovely evening as well. And I hope you'll join our online workshops again during the rest of the term. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Mary. Goodbye, everybody.